The most dangerous survival mistake isn't about the lack of gear. It's panic. It destroys families, it destroys careers, it destroys finances and lives. So today I want to explain why. Most people think survival is about equipment. They think if they just had the right equipment or the right backpack or the right knife, some of them think it's just the right firearm or the right emergency kit, then they'd be prepared, right? But after decades of teaching wilderness survival courses, tracking courses, preparedness, bushcraft, I've learned something, and it's kind of surprising to me. The most dangerous survival mistake isn't about the lack of gear, it's panic. And panic doesn't just get people bent out of shape in the wilderness. It destroys families, it destroys careers, it destroys finances and lives. So today I want to explain why. Hey, welcome back, Papa Todd channel. Appreciate you being here. I was raised on a farm where I didn't know I was being ready, getting prepared. It was just part of life. You didn't think about it. It was just something you did. And over the years, I've ended up getting into, wilderness survival and bushcraft and tracking and different things of the outdoors. And I've ended up teaching a lot of people, maybe in the hundreds. Not by, I want to do it formally. It was just informal. People just came to me and wanted to learn. They knew I had some skills and they wanted to learn that. But what I've discovered is the most important survival skill isn't starting a fire. It's not building a shelter. It's not finding and preparing water. It's learning how to think clearly when things don't go as planned. Because the man who can think clearly has already solved half the problem. How people really get lost. When people imagine getting lost, it's usually way out deep in the woods, right? A long ways away from society, a long ways away from help. They're out either on a trail or they're, not really aware of where the trail can go, and they end up wandering a little bit. Or you might just imagine someone out and why they get lost, right? They're out there just being irresponsible, wandering around, but that's usually not how it goes. In other words, most people don't get lost because they're stupid. They get lost because they just become confused. They just get turned around a little bit, one wrong turn, right? And then they get a little bit worried about, did I just make a mistake, right? And if that goes on long enough, then it's, I'm afraid. Fear starts to well up. And then the next thing you know, they start making bad decisions. I've watched this happen many times, training people and seeing how their mindset works from a distance, following them and just making sure they don't get into trouble. Someone realizes that all of a sudden they aren't exactly where they thought they were. And then all of a sudden their head starts to turn on a swivel and their breathing starts to increase, right? And they don't realize it, but instantaneously their mind begins to narrow on options. Their thinking narrows, in other words. And instead of slowing down, they start to speed up. Instead of stopping, they begin to rush. And instead of getting a good assessment of your surroundings, they actually start to just react quickly. Now, a lot of times those reactions come with bad decisions, and some of them are really bad, and then they start to compound one upon another. One bad decision upon one bad decision, and usually the deeper you get, the harder the decisions get as well. So, the wilderness isn't usually what defeats the people. It's their own mind that defeats them. The survival spiral. And then there's something that happens that I call the survival spiral. They get sucked in and it's really hard to get out of, really hard. So what does it look like? First, it looks like confusion. It just starts simple. I'm a little confused. And then, like I said, that turns into fear, and that fear begins to grow and swell up inside them. And then it turns into full-fledged panic. Now that panic, again, narrows your brain's capacity to think and react appropriately, so you start making these bad decisions. More problems, more panic, more bad decisions, and it starts to spiral out of control. And when I think about this spiral, it's not just in the wilderness, in a wilderness survival situation. We have this happen to us all the time. It's interesting that it's the same thing in real life, in the modern world, in your daily life, going about doing what you're doing. It's not just being outdoors, right? It could be the situation of something as simple as losing a job. That's a terrible thing. It could be a medical emergency. It could be a family member, an unexpected debt. Something happens, in a relationship, and now all of a sudden you're in crisis mode. Many people react the exact same way as they would under a pretty severe survival situation. So instead of slowing down and instead of, assessing the situation and thinking through, they just begin to react emotionally. The emotions begin to take over. The reactions to those emotions are not the best. And as we know, emotional decisions can be very expensive decisions. Why modern life makes this worse. So one reason that I really believe that we are facing these problems is because modern life has removed a lot of the challenges that we used to have growing up that would teach us some of these skills, right? They used to build resilience in us. We face challenges, we build a solution to those challenges, and we become resilient as a result of that. And most people can avoid that today, right? Any kind of discomfort's almost entirely avoided in their life, and they're never intentionally trying to build resilience. Is it too hot? We just turn on the air conditioner. Is it too cold? We turn on the heater, right? Are we too hungry? Food's never that far away for most people, and we can just go get it and solve that discomfort. The other thing is, are you bored? You can just pull out of your pocket entertainment and instantaneously take over your boredom and do away with it. And we become hooked on a lot of these things, and we take it for granted a lot of times that we have access to some of this stuff, right? So the problems isn't the convenience though itself. The problem is never challenging yourself to participate in something that's uncomfortable. So the problem is never practicing discomfort, because discomfort is where skills are built, where capability is built. So if you've never had to challenge yourself or solve difficult problems, then even the smallest problems can be overwhelming. A lesson from dog training. Many years ago, I used to train attack on command dogs, and I learned a lot of things about dogs during that time frame. And usually the most powerful dogs weren't the most aggressive dogs. They were the kind of the quiet dogs, the ones that you could sense had self-control. And of course that was trained into the dog, the self-control, the obedience, right? You start with obedience before you work into the aggression, because you want to be able to control the dog. A dog that can remain calm, focused, and disciplined, obedient under pressure situations is always going to be a far more capable dog than that of a simply reactive dog. And the same principles apply to men. Anybody can lose their temper. Anybody can panic, and anybody can react emotionally. That's simple. But a man who can remain calm while everybody else is losing their heads is a very incredibly valuable person. People are going to trust him. They're going to follow him. They're going to depend on him. Why fathers must master calm. This is where fatherhood and preparedness come together. Your children are always watching. They watch you and how you respond when things break, when things go wrong. They're looking at you. They're looking for your response. And when you respond, they will mirror that. They will mimic that. And they will adopt that in their life long term. They see how you handle setbacks. They see how you handle losing a job. They see if you panic. And when a father panics, everybody feels it. And when a father remains steady, everybody feels that too. Now, this is crucial. I'm not talking about pretending. I'm talking about developing real confidence, genuine confidence, through competence. You know, confidence isn't just something you say. It's something you've earned. And children can tell the difference. What real preparedness looks like. So preparedness, a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions on what preparedness really is. And I'm here to tell you, a room full of stocked goods is not preparedness necessarily. It's a great start. It's something you shouldn't put off. Absolutely. Do it. Those things matter, in other words. I truly believe in preparedness. I've been teaching it for a long period of time. Otherwise, I wouldn't teach it if I didn't think it was extremely important, obviously. But supplies are only one layer in that system of preparedness. So how does true preparedness evolve? It starts like this. Knowledge. That's books, that's reading, that's putting your research in and figuring out in your life the best way of doing things, right? So that's the first step, get your knowledge going. The second step, skills. That might mean you take a class. You might go do something with someone who knows how to do that skill so you can learn the nuances of that skill so that when you try it, it's just a little bit easier, right? You've gotten over hurdles faster. And then you have to take that skill that you've learned with somebody and go put it to work on your own. Get the experience. So experience, huge. You got to put the time in. You got to put the effort in. Once you do that, the discipline, when you add that discipline, because without skills and knowledge beforehand, your skills and your abilities are going to fade over time, right? So it takes self-control to get out there, create that discipline, go solve those problems. And then keep a calm mind when you feel like you're about to lose it because you've been challenged a little harder than you thought you needed to be. Keep a calm mind, think through things, and keep challenging yourself. If everything else disappears, those things are going to remain in your life. And that's often the difference between success and failure. 3 ways to build calm under pressure. So how do you actually develop calm? So here's what I've found works. First, you set yourself up for discomfort, for a challenging situation. Now, this might be something simple like, working outside for some of you. Others, it might be a little bit more challenging. It might be like, I want to learn how to fish. Start with fishing, work your way up to hunting. Or maybe you just want to go camping, learn how to camp, right? Or some of you, it just might be, it's time to get some exercise, get myself in shape. Need to lose a little weight, get outside, right? Do some things. Learn a skill that's going to challenge you. That's the key. Challenge yourself. And we could start small with small hardships and you prepare yourself through this process, you're getting ready for bigger ones. You challenge yourself with a little bit bigger ones, Don't bite off more than you can chew, right? Start small, work your way up. Second, begin to solve all the problems yourself first before you ever go get any help from anybody. Just decide, I'm going to try to solve every one of these problems myself. Now, I know that means sometimes you got to go to Google, but that's fine. That's knowledge. You're going out there. You're trying it, right? So in other words, before reaching for help, just try. Figure it out. Now, that might mean repairing something. That might mean building something for the first time. Challenge yourself. Learn something difficult. Capability grows through effort. It's not going to grow any other way. You got to put the time in. Third thing I need you to do is slow down. This world is so full of distractions and things. You've got to make a commitment to slow down nowadays. There's too much going on. And when some sort of pressure arrives in your life, you're going to have to resist the urge to just immediately react to it. Calm down. Pause for a second. Count to 10 if you got to. Count to 30 if you have to. Assess your situation and think through the best way of solving this. Then you can react. 1 minute of calm thinking has saved people thousands of hours of regret and potentially thousands of dollars of regret. So step 3 is important. Stay calm. When you study history, you discover something really interesting. The men who led people through difficult times weren't always the strongest men. They definitely weren't the loudest men, but they were often the calmest men. You know, whether that was pioneers going through open territory where nobody'd been before, explorers, could have been military men, right? Soldiers facing impossible odds, or just simply fathers just trying to hold their families together during a really hard time. The ability to remain steady really mattered during those times because panic spreads, but guess what? So does calm. Calm spreads too. One of the greatest gifts a man can give his family is not money. It's not property. It's not possessions. It's stability. It's becoming the man who can think clearly when others can't. That's a huge gift. You may not recognize it now, but when times get hard, you will. You'll see it. When the world can be collapsing all around you and you are facing the most uncertainty you have seen in your life. It's the kind of man who understands that fear is normal, but doesn't allow that fear to make his decisions for him. Because the goal isn't becoming fearless. The goal is becoming capable enough that fear doesn't control you. So I'd like to hear from you. Put in the comments down below. Be sure and like and subscribe to this, but tell me about a time when you were challenged, when you were staying calm, and that calm helped you get through a situation. It really helped you overcome and others around you to stay calm and get through a really difficult situation. What did you learn from that? Leave a comment down below. Appreciate it. Again, thanks for being here. Get grounded, stay steady, and get prepared. We'll see you next week.